You see, I remember my pastor once saying that we really need to be ruthless with our distractions. You see, he was admonishing us to be all in on going for the success that we wanted. Today's guest reminds me of something like that. She reminds me that we really need to be unapologetic about caring for ourselves, that we need to prioritize our needs, our wants, and our desires, that we need to make sure that they are absolutely top goals that we have to pursue. Taking care of ourselves with no apologies is absolutely the priority that is going to make sure that we can go the distance and be pleased with who we are and what we experience. So today's conversation is going to energize that. And I want you to listen and I want you to take in some fantastic nuggets that are going to make a difference in your life. Let's get into it. For the longest time, I secretly wanted more. I often found myself shrinking to fit in, settling for what was comfortable, and even selling myself short. Once I finally accepted that we deserve success and we are blessed with the power to achieve it, I stopped playing small. I'm serious about building a life I love, and you should be too. I'm Denise Taylor of DeniseTaylor.live, and welcome to Embrace Your Power. I help women prioritize themselves, their success, and their happiness. Now let's meet this week's achiever, whose story will inspire you to embrace your power and go. Well, hello there. It's Denise Taylor here, and you already know I'm excited to make connection with you. Every week, I look forward to Thursday. For me, it's treat day because I know I am going to end up in your lineup. I am going to show up to encourage you to build a life that you love. You see, around these parts, that's what I champion. I want you to be your own priority. I want you to think about the things that you secretly want and position yourself to go for it. You see, building a life that you love means that you truly embrace your power. And I believe that God has given us power. And when we embrace it, we can truly be, do, have, and achieve anything that we want. Now, I'll tell you, I believe you'll be divinely inspired to go after the things that God wants to partner with you to do. And when you do that, you are going to experience satisfaction and fulfillment that is going to feel amazing. And so I want you to lean into that. I want you to embrace your power. You see, God didn't give us fear. He gave us power. So embrace it and go for your dreams. Now, today, I want to talk a little bit about being unapologetic. You see, around here, we talk about success a whole lot. And if you're new, you want to go to my website, www.successsuperpowers.live, and get the information about the success superpowers. But in pursuing our success, in pursuing the things that we want, there is a shift of mindset that often has to happen. Many of us have been conditioned where we have begun to settle and deprioritize ourselves. We have discounted our value. And what I want to do today is energize you truly knowing your worth. And so this whole perspective of living unapologetic, we're going to go deeper in it today. Living an unapologetic life doesn't mean you don't apologize when you're wrong. That's not what being unapologetic is about. It also doesn't mean that you're rude or you treat other people poorly. It really simply means never having to feel bad for what you want and how you want to live your life. You see, building a life that you love, I want it to be something that resonates so well with you because it is the realization of the things that you really want. And I don't want you to ever feel the necessity to apologize for what God has inspired you to be delighted in. I want you to go for that. I want you to experience success and satisfaction, which means that you have to lean into being unapologetic about the things that are important to you. Now, if you live an unapologetic life, there is going to potentially be some pushback. You may feel pressure to conform. And the reason why you feel that is because we are conditioned to settle in and not stand out. So living your unapologetic life means that you have to be willing to go against the grain. You have to be willing to not succumb to the pressure to conform. You may face scrutiny for your self-prioritization and for the beliefs that you hold. When you begin to believe that you deserve it, that may not fit with the mindset of some people. But what I want you to lock in on is that God has given you power and he has given you desires. And he has even said that if you would delight yourself in him, you can have what your heart longs for. You may face opinions about the way you choose to live your life. And prioritizing yourself means that you're going to have to say no to some people sometime. And you may even get backlash because other people are afraid to live their lives as authentically as you. It's as if you become a mirror to their inability to choose themselves. That is one of the reasons why I love our guest today. You see, I have had my eye on Eboney for a very long time. How she shows up and how she expresses herself and how it is very clear that she is unapologetic. And so I think as we get into the conversation today, you are going to be challenged to prioritize your needs. And I think you're going to learn from her experiences why it's important for her and why it's also important for you to prioritize yourself. So here's a little bit more about Eboney. Eboney Weathers is affectionately known as Pastor E. She possesses a magnetic personality and she has had an incredible life journey. She boasts a celebrated career with the Commonwealth of Kentucky, and she retired at age 35. From a political appointee position with the governor's office to now serving as an overseer in the Sound Alliance. She's an influencer and a mentor with a passion to reach women and a desire to see women restored to wholeness and walking boldly and unapologetically in who they are created to be. She is the founder of the international social club Dear Sissy Global Network. She's a native of Frankfort, Kentucky, and now resides in Danville, Kentucky, with her husband, Pastor Larry D. Weathers II. So I want you to particularly pay attention to all of the winning nuggets that Pastor E shares with us as she shares her story and her wisdom. And I'll see you on the other side. So one of the things I love about the social media space is when I come across amazing women. And somehow I stumbled into Eboney world. I'm not exactly sure how. And I would see these bold, fascinating posts that really made me do a couple of things. They made me think. They made me want to honor myself, and they made me feel all the feels as a woman. And so I am so glad that Eboney opened up her calendar again and started back on being available to talk with people like me who want to tap into her Black girl magic. Now, this is what's on her bio on social media, and this will give you a flavor for just how dope she is. She says, "My life has been real, raw, uncut, and ugly. I am an overcomer of this world, a woman born again into a life of happiness, fullness, joy, and overflow. And that's the kind of vibe that I 100% get from your presence, from everything that you share so transparently. And it is such my honor to welcome you to Embrace Your Power today. So, Miss Eboney, Pastor Eboney, Pastor E, please do me the honors of adding whatever you would like to introduce yourself.
Hey, you guys. So I'm Ebony Weathers, or Pastor E. Some of y'all call me Auntie or Mama E. It's completely up to you. First of all, Denise, I just want to say thank you. Thank you so much for allowing me to grace your platform. Thank you for the invitation. I honor you. I love the work that you're doing, and I'm very humbled to be a part of it. And I do think I told you this in private. You are the first speaking engagement I actually said yes to when I opened my calendar up after some years. So I am pumped about being here with you this evening. So I'm Ebony. I'm Pastor E. I am a lover. I am a woman of truth. I am unapologetically who I have been designed to be and created to be. I don't know, if you were to sum me up in one word, I would just say that word is boldness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's the vibe that I 100% get. And I'll tell you, I appreciate it. Because oftentimes we can get so used to drawing in the lines that we really don't understand our innovative and creative power because we have limited ourselves. And so when I see someone like you, who I believe is completely synonymous with unapologetic in so many different ways. And I look at you, and what resonates is you being empowered. What resonates is you being pro-female and you loving God all at the same time. I see you walking in love. I see you exhibiting your love for the man in your life. I see you being head over heels in love with him. But at the same time, I see you doing meal prep. I see you talk about the woes with your natural hairstyle. I see you just being completely who you are. And I think that is so beautiful. My first question for you is, have you always been this way? I mean, tell me about yourself as a little girl growing up.
Well, if you were to ask my daddy, he would tell you I was the most stubborn little thing there ever was. And I would actually have to agree with him. Growing up, no, I was not confident at all. I'm the product of a single family home. I was actually raised by a single father. A lot of times women are raised by the single mommy, but in my case, I was raised by a single father. So a lot of the attributes that I had early in life, as far as strength, focus, the masculine tendencies and attributes, I had those, but I was completely lacking when it came to holding space for femininity and who I was as a little girl versus this is who you are being character driven. So I was somewhat off balance as a little girl. I was bad. So see, I was, that's not culture appropriate to say now, but I'm talking about myself, so I can say this. I was the little girl who, if you said, no, you can't do this, I had to know why. I was the little girl who was raised in a religious environment that I came to know later once I was an adult. Okay, you're in a cult. So being a part of that, I'm the problem kid. Well, why? Why aren't we loving on folks? Why are they being disfellowshipped? Why is it this way? Just tons of questions all the time. And I learned at an early age that when it came to punishment and it came to disciplinary actions, I was okay with being punished and having a disciplinary action taken against me as long as I got to do what I wanted to do. Mm-hmm. So I was a lot to handle as a kid. But to answer your question, no. The stubbornness that I now have molded into more of a mindset, dynamic is there. But as far as being confident and unapologetically who I am and comfortable in my body, like I'm 6'1", for example. So being raised in Kentucky, there's just not very many 6'1" Black women or young Black girls. Like I was 5'10" by the time I was 12, so I would hunker over and my dad would always tell me, sit up straight, sit up tall. But I did it out of obedience to my father. Yet as a young girl, no, I wasn't confident.
Mm-hmm. Okay. One of the things I recently saw that you posted is how you have these gaps in memory. I can relate to that 100% because I often hear people talk about their childhood, and I try to go to the registry bank and it's like no file found, right? Like I can't pull anything back from it. And a lot of that results from trauma experiences, right? And so I know your life has been peppered with some very high highs and some very low lows that also played a role into who you have developed to be and become. So tell me a little bit about that experience of navigating through all the things that you've been through for as much as you're comfortable.
It was a tough road. So I left home when I was 16 years old and have been on my own, so to speak, since I was 16. Fast forward, I found myself pregnant at the age of 18. At the time that I found myself pregnant, I was homeless. I was extremely late in my pregnancy, almost 4 months, due to the fact that I had a drug and an alcohol addiction. No one told me that, you can party so hard that your birth control is ineffective. So I had not actually had my cycle for almost a year and a half when I found out I was pregnant. So that day, I was like, oh crap, what am I going to do? I have to get my life together. And so on Christmas Eve, I moved into a homeless shelter. This is such a defining moment in my life because I can remember having this kid. My tummy was completely flat, and a part of me did not believe that positive pregnancy test, and it did not believe the positive blood test, like none of that. I'm just like, y'all lying to me. Okay. This is not happening. I've been taking my little pill every day at 3:00. I'm not pregnant, but actually I was. So I remember sitting on the side of the bed and putting my hands on my tummy and just kind of zoning out and being like, wait, I'm going to have a kid. I have nothing. Like literally nothing. I had all of my belongings fit into a Kroger bag that I went into this shelter with. So I'm sitting there and I remember saying over my daughter at the time, I didn't know, the sex of my child, but saying, this is not your fault. Where I am has nothing to do with you. And I'm going to make sure that you are born in an atmosphere of love. And from that day forward, I bust my butt. And I realized my main focus wasn't me. It wasn't how I felt. It wasn't what I thought. It was, girl, you don't want to give birth in a homeless shelter. So in a matter of, I believe it was about 4.5 months, I had my first home. And I was very excited to be in a position where I could give birth and bring my daughter into our place, So that's one moment that really changed my life. Another moment that really impacted me as far as my womanhood was overcoming the stigma and the cultural things attached to being a teenage mom so well that when my daughter went to college, I freaked out because my whole life had been wrapped around the identity of being a mom. And so I found myself as the single mother, like, what is going on? I can't go to campus with her. I can't stay in the dorm with her. I was sitting in the living room and I got up and I was like, let me just do busy work, girl. You know how we do is like, let me just clean something. So I went in the kitchen and I was washing dishes and I broke down. Like I had a whole moment where I lost it and I fell on the floor sobbing because I realized I felt like I didn't have anything outside of being a mom. Mm. And so that particular moment, I learned, okay, you have to reconnect with who you are. There is greatness in you. There's purpose in you. You are more, you're here more on this planet to do more than just be a mom. Like, that's a beautiful thing, but that's just one of the roles you're supposed to play in. And so I went on this journey of self-discovery to find out who I am. And I realized I didn't know. Like, I didn't know the basics. I didn't know my favorite color or my favorite song or my favorite meal. All of those answers that I would give when someone asked were run through the filter of being a mom. Purple wasn't my favorite color. It was her favorite color. I don't really like mac and cheese that much, but that would be my response. Oh, macaroni and cheese. And so I had to completely deconstruct this facade of a woman that I had created for the sake of family, routine, work, culture, and have a girl to girl moment with myself. Like, okay, who are you? You don't know. And this is a whole problem.
Mm-hmm. Oh my God, that's amazing, because I can imagine a lot of people find themselves in that space. For me, listening, it sounds like your daughter was such a lifeline for you, a lifeline for you to change what was happening to you. And you went all in on that, right? And so I can only imagine that when it came time for her to kind of evolve into her next, just how critical that was for you to be able to say, you know what, I guess I got to get to know me, because I was really living for us under the guise of her. And boy, what a journey that has been for you, getting to know you. So tell me a couple of things that you learned about you and that you love about you.
So the love piece came later. Mm-hmm. What I learned first about me was I was fake. Mm-hmm. Everything that I presented to everyone was this woman who had it all together, and I'm a mother. I am, at the time that I had her, I was a single mother. I was on the other side of divorce, pardon me, when she went to college. So I'm in this new space as the single mother. I'm an empty nester. I'm focusing on my career. I'm goal oriented. Everything is great and amazing. And my whole world is picture perfect, right? That is what everyone around me thought, because that is what I knew how to do from past traumas. I knew how to fake it until I make it. I hate that, by the way, when we say that, but I had mastered faking it until I make it, to where the outside and shell of who I was so pristine and polished that you would have thought, oh, there's nothing ever wrong with her. Mm-hmm. Pull that curtain back. Oh my gosh, I had never started to heal from abandonment issues. The reason why I was living with my father was my parents had a divorce at an early age, and my father was the one, who I ended up being with. And I had abandonment issues from that. I had a lot of self-hate because I had never grown comfortable in being who I was physically, being 6'1", being so tall and standing over most women and a lot of men. Oh my gosh, I had suicidal tendencies. The thoughts that I would have, where I would just lay in the bed and I just don't want to wake up, or oh my gosh, I just wish all of this would end. The fact that my daughter was the only thing where she saved my life, she literally saved my life, because I went cold turkey on everything the moment that I found out I was pregnant with her, mm-hmm. up into, okay, she's leaving, but she's still my lifeline. Mm-hmm. She's still my sense of, this is why I have to be here. Mm-hmm. And so I was jacked up, like, full transparency. I was broken. I had not gone into therapy at that point in my life. So I was all over the place. I was unhappy. Nothing brought me true joy. Nothing really fulfilled me as a woman. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it was pretty bad. It was pretty bad. And I had to look at myself and realize that Ebony the woman I used everything on the outside to try to create this faux sense of happiness on my inside, whether it was being a mother, whether it was, trying to dominate in my career, whether it was having relationships with men, whether it was drinking, all of those things were things that I was doing to complete and give me this feeling that I was lacking in a moment or to even experience. Mm-hmm. So post healing and therapy and a whole lot of Jesus moments where I'm laying on the floor like, oh, what a ratchet woman I am, I started working on myself. I started taking time to speak well over myself. I started making sure that my mindset was right before and after and during certain moments. I didn't mention this, but the gap of time, the 10 years that I had in my 20s, I was married to a narcissist. Mm-hmm. And so throughout that time, that's where a lot of the self-hate came to be, where I didn't think I was pretty. And I thought I was ugly, and I thought I was fat and clumsy and awkward. And so I had a lot of thoughts and voices of other people in my head. And I had to literally sift through those one by one and pull them down and replace those thoughts. And it took a lot of work. It took a lot of work because I could just be walking through the grocery store and it'd be so simple as someone giving me a compliment like, oh, I like your dress. And I couldn't receive it. I didn't believe it. It's like, well, why are you telling me that? What do you want? Like I'm looking at you suspicious, So that journey was intense. It was very intense. I hope that answers your question, Sissy.
It does. It answers it completely. And in many ways, I can relate to that. And I love the secret cocktail, right? Which was, I got to do some mirror work. I got to do some me work. It's not a pretty journey. I got to get some other people involved, to help me navigate through this. Absolutely. I got to take each one of those phrases one by one and really figure out how to go back to the truth of who God says I am. And I need a whole lot of Jesus in that. And so I can relate to all of it. In fact, I have a different podcast platform called I'm the Good Thing. And the whole context of that in my own discovery is that I learned and believed so many lies that the only thing that really was a saving grace to me was going back to who did God say I was, right? And how do I rely on that? And how do I lean into how he sees me? And that is what really made a big shift for me. And so now it's easy to say, I'm beautiful. I am fearfully, wonderfully made, like all these different attributes, but I don't say them because they're in me. I say them because that's who God says I am, right? And I receive that definition because he's my creator and I believe him. And he has been consistent with that message all the way through. And so it's really easy for me to relate to that healing journey because it is a lot to unearth all that when you're going through it.
It really is, Sissy. At one point, and I love what you're saying about the affirmations. That's what I call them. And I actually take it a step further and call them declarations. I had about 60 different declarations, which were affirmations in how God sees me. And I wrote them down on sticky notes. And if you went into my bedroom, I stuck them literally all over the threshold of the bedroom going into the bathroom and all around the mirror, all up and down the wall. And every morning when I was getting up for work, I would say those. And I know it sounds kind of, I don't know, janky to hear that out loud. But when you are a woman who does not know how to speak well over yourself, then it's really hard for you to receive someone else speaking well over you. And so I would make myself not just read these stickies, but to say them out loud. And I can remember one moment when it started, I would just kind of be like, okay, okay, God. So it's just like kind of mumbling under my breath. And I can remember a moment getting ready for work where I walked into my bathroom, and as I was looking around the mirror, I'm reciting these and I'm speaking them over myself with power because I started to believe it. The voice that I was speaking, which was really the word of God that I'm speaking over my life, became louder than all of those voices that had been in my head all these years. Mm-hmm. And it completely transformed and started the process of a mental transformation for me. Mm-hmm. But I completely agree with you. That was so monumental in my life to be able to do that.
So one of the things that came to mind as you were speaking that my pastor recently said, he said, the lies are so convincing, it's because we hear them in our own voice. And mm-hmm. I think the converse is true of what you're saying. The power was so freeing and so releasing for you, also because you heard it in your own voice, which had been doled out all of those years when all these other clanging noises and voices came in that spoke against what your true beauty was. So tell me, what did it feel like to discover your true beauty, like your real beauty?
Oh gosh, what did that feel like? It kind of felt good, but it was also, if I'm being fully honest, it was scary. Mm-hmm. It was taking this power that you have as a woman when you master femininity, mm-hmm. and then taking this power over here as a daughter of God, mm-hmm. and figuring out how do you merge these two together in the right way. Because culturally, we're brought up as women how to utilize this power in the wrong way. So how do I do this in the right way, right? That scared me because I felt like, all right, I'm finally good enough. Because prior to this moment, I'm just seeing myself as I'm bad, I'm dirty, I'm unclean, right? So I'm finally good enough. I'm finally seeing myself as worthy enough. I'm finally seeing myself as this woman where it's okay for me to operate in certain capacities. I'm not going to mess it up. I'm not going to get something else dirty. I'm not going to jack up another woman. And oh my gosh, when I started to finally move forward in that process, it was like a tiptoeing, if that makes sense, because I was afraid that I was going to break it. That's how I processed it. I pray that makes sense to you, but I was afraid that I was going to break it. I was afraid that I had arrived at this beautiful place of being a woman of power, strength, femininity, a woman in God, his daughter, like actually seeing myself worthy of his love and worthy to receive his love. And I was freaking scared to jack that up, So I tiptoed around it. And I was still very cognizant of the things I did, the things I said, the places I went, the interactions that I had with people, because I didn't understand that the power of actual power itself it's more powerful when it's harnessed versus released. And so
yeah, one of the things that's coming up for me as you are so delicately leaning into this is it was a glimpse into vulnerability, that when you're going through life and you're really having to show up, I don't want to say it's like in this alpha male zone, but you have to show up with such aggression, and you have to show up to take care of and to make sure things are done. You really lean into the boldness of that power, right? And when you start talking about stepping into this more softer palette, right, in this more vulnerable trait, it feels so foreign, though it's just as beautiful and just as powerful. And so I get it when you're like, I don't want to break this. Like, I don't want to mess this up. I don't want to do anything that's going to throw it off. And it's because it's something completely new that you just didn't lean into most of your life.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
So one post I love that I saw you make is when you said, I work my tail off to intentionally build a life I don't want to escape from. I was worth it. Healing is the real hero. And when I read that, I was like, that sentiment I can relate to. Tell me, more about that powerful healing journey and how that feeds into you being so unapologetic. Because healing, to me, it's liberating. And I think that's what I see you being, a liberated woman. So tell me about it.
Thank you for that. I had to break through the stigma that therapy means it's a stigma. It's there's something wrong with you, or you're crazy, or how will people look at me or judge me, or will they be able to receive me if they know that I've gone to therapy? Any and everyone watching and hearing this, I believe that every woman and man, but I'm more centered on women, you need to get a therapist. First and foremost, therapy saved my life several times. I've gone into therapy by choice because I realize in order for me to maximize who I am as a woman, I have to do it from a place of healing and wholeness. And as much as a believer, I want to say, okay, God's doing that, God's doing that, God's doing that. I have to realize that even though I have spirit wrapped in flesh, God has also raised up doctors and clinicians who can deal with this fleshly part of me. And it's okay for me to go and see them. So I had to get that right in my mind first and foremost, and create a village to help me. So once I started going through the process of healing, I realized that everything in my life I had already gone through, I had overcome, and I had surmounted. And one day I realized, Eboney, you have a 100% track record of overcoming. That shifted my mindset. And it made me realize I can do this. If I can overcome actual challenges like homelessness, drug addiction, sex addiction, alcohol addiction, a horrible marriage, being married to a narcissist, divorce, like all of these things, if I can overcome all of those, and I'm at this place where I did overcome them, the only person in this world who can make me not move forward and ahead with what I want to do is myself. If outside voices are going to tell me, girl, you can't do this, so you don't need to do this, the only reason those would have power over my life would be if I listened to them and I believed them. And I chose to shift my focus from them versus, okay, I'm going to do this over here. I'm going to focus on my goals and what I'm going to achieve. And so I felt like Superwoman, right? I felt so empowered is an understatement. I literally felt like I am God's freaking daughter. Like I am dunamis power walking through this earth. Try and stop me if you want to, baby. It's not gonna work because you can't. Like it's a mindset change where I realize you absolutely can't do anything to stop me. So if you want to talk about me, go ahead. If you want to try to sabotage me, go ahead. If you want to try to block me, that's fine. That just means that door isn't meant for me. Obviously, God's got a different door over here that I'm supposed to go through. So it shifted my mindset. And I was able to get up every day and walk in this power and walk in this authority of not just knowing who I am, because we do that sometimes as believers. You know, we recite these colloquialisms and scriptures and sayings and all of the church culture stuff. But do we really, 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 truly believe in who God says we are? Baby, that moment where I finally believed it, you can tell me nothing. You can tell me anything. That's like, because it's almost even as scripture says, what can mere mortals do to me? Like there, you have no power to stop this, because I know I'm living my life in obedience. I know that obedience to God changed my life, saved my life, and is allowing my life to progress and move forward, right? So what are you really going to do? You know, it's like, how can you, not you, sissy, but you know, the thems, how are these individuals actually going to have more power than God? Mm-hmm. It's not possible. Mm-hmm. It's not possible. So when my spiritual alignment came to be, and then my mental alignment came to be, and those synced up at the same time, mm-hmm. Oh no. The most unapologetic woman, and the woman that you've met and that's sitting before you, that's when she started to really reign in this space of life.
And I'm sure you're loving every day of it. I know I love every day of it. It's such an encouragement to me. So I can only imagine, with having that confidence to really say to yourself, how do you think you're going to rise above the power of the one I serve, of the God that I know can make all things possible for me? Nah, that's not how it's going to go down.
Not an option. It's not an option. And it sounds funny to say, but it's like, you really think you're stronger to God? Like, you really think you have the ability to impact me? No. Mm-mm.
I love it. I absolutely love it. So I want to come up to a couple events that happened recently in your life. You didn't just do a big chop, like you shaved your head. Now that's a very different dynamic. And I'm sure you got messages like, are you okay? I'm sure people were concerned because of the rite of passage that shaving one's head has. But tell me how you ended on this journey where you said, I want to step in and I want to shave my head.
Oh my gosh, sissy. So you're exactly right. People were so concerned. Are you okay? Do we need to pray? Is there anything we need to do? Well, is she sick? So, because I didn't just do, like you said, it wasn't just a big chop. I did it completely low, and I had a lot of hair. So I went completely low, all the way buzzed off. And then I also had the second barber come in with the warm foam. Oh, it felt so good. And he shaved my head with the razor. So my actual scalp was like the back of my hand slick. I was slick bald. Mm-hmm. And I loved it. I still love it. And I think that's my favorite hair look. One of my favorite hair looks today. Mm-hmm. The reason I decided to shave my head, I wish I could say there was some monumental moment behind that. But the truth is, I have this thing I call a life list. A lot of people call it a bucket list, but that's very morbid to me. I'm not trying to do all of these things before I pass. I want to do all of these things on my life list so that I have the memories of them while I'm living, right? Mm-hmm. So I created this life list. And one of the things on my life list was to shave my head. Ever since I was 16, I wanted to shave my head. At that time, people wouldn't let me do it. Then growing up, I had insecurities, and then we're also women. So it's, well, what does my head look like? How is my head shaped? You know, have I ever damaged my head? Do I have a scar? Do I have, you know, something over here, maybe a birthmark? Will that be seen? All of the insecurity things that we filter through as women. And I was like, okay. I told my husband, I said, I'm going to shave my head. I'm going to do it for my 50th. We had that conversation, and then we had it again once we relocated here to Kentucky. And I was like, don't forget, you know, I'm really serious about shaving my head. So he said to me, because husbands are petty, he leaned in and he said, well, you know, the older you get, your hair might not grow back. I was like, touche. This is true. So if I don't like it, I probably need to go on and do it now before my hair growth starts to slow down. And so the next morning I woke up and I'm like, babe, let's do it. Let's shave my head. He's like, are you serious? I said, yes, I'm so serious. And he was not trying to get on board with that shenanigan in case something went wrong. So he put me an appointment with his barber, and I decided to do it. But the main focus behind the hair shaving still being on my list for 30 plus years is because it was connected to fear. And when I sat here one day, it was back in, I forget what month I initially shaved it, but this summer I realized that's the only thing on my life list that has fear connected to it. The only thing, everything else I've done, and I've done some crazy radical things because I'm partly an adrenaline junkie. So I was like, all right, we're going to do this. And I did it.
And it was beautiful.
Thank
It was
you.
absolutely beautiful. If there's someone who can rock it for a lifetime, it really is you. I think it's such a powerful statement, especially when you just clarify that it was the only thing that had an association to fear. And I love that you allow your power to rise above that, right? To rise above the fear that you felt and you just went for it. I think the thing that I really love also, Ebony, is how you share your life, right? And you share the things that you're negotiating through and the perspectives that you have, the opinions and the thoughts. I mean, you share a lot of your life. And one of the things that I've come to know through sharing the way that I do is when we do that, we unconsciously empower other women to do the same. We empower them to choose themselves. We empower them to conquer the fear they may be feeling. We empower them to prioritize their needs, like all of the things that we put on display. But it takes a lot to be kind of 10 toes down on doing that, right? To sharing your life in that way. And I can understand now a little bit where the courage and the power to do it kind of comes in. Is there any downside that you know of that you've experienced from living out loud?
Oh my gosh. Yes. First of all, I would say the saints. The saints will forever come for me because the presentation that I allow people to see, which is truly who I am, doesn't always match up with every believer's viewpoint of what a pastor is supposed to be and look like, or a woman of God is supposed to be and look like. Now that we're in the age of social media and podcasts and reels and all of that, there's a whole generation that embraces this, but there's also a generation that really doesn't understand the concept, the power, or the reach to anything digital. Mm-hmm. And so those people have a tendency, to be the negative Nancy's and, oh, well, she puts everything out there on her social media and she shares this. But what people don't realize is, and I didn't at first, and it took me a minute to realize when God told me that my transition into ministry, he gave me very clear instructions to be transparent. And I fought with it because the first time that I was transparent was in a local church, and I shared my backstory that I thought was a testimony, but the church took that and weaponized it and used it against me. So there was a lot of church hurt. And so I entered this space of, I don't think that's it, God. I don't think you want me to keep sharing the realness, because when I share the realness, things happen, And so I had to go and realize that my obedience to what I'm called to do and who I was created to be is far more important than what anyone can think or say. But through that, what started as this walk of obedience, I later realized was, this isn't just me and my mandate. This is what we're all supposed to be doing as his children, as his sons and his daughters. Each and every one of us are supposed to live out loud, love out loud, be free, be transparent, because it's truly that testimony that's going to change someone else. The power of overcoming that changes someone else. So when I started to get these inbox messages of women who have yet to find their voice and their power within, say, hey, when you made that post about being a single mom and you said how you had moments where it sucked, I can relate to that. No one ever said that. And I feel bad for thinking it. And I'm like, girl, everybody feels that way in moments. It's okay, And so as those testimonies of other women started to come in, it gave me confirmation after confirmation after confirmation. Okay, you're on the right track. This is who you are, and this is what you're going to do no matter what. Like literally, no matter what. And the fact that I could have 100 people, come against me, because I've had that happen. I've had my name, my ministry, my church, my family picked up by social media bloggers and things of that nature, and literally just been slammed and inundated with all this negativity. But the fact that through all of that, even if I have one woman that can realize she's worth it, her voice matters, that her tomorrow can be better than what she's going through right now, I'd do it all again. Completely, I would do it all again.
Mm-hmm. And that definitely is what God said, right? He said it was worth going back for the one. And I haven't been trolled that way, right? But I do believe that every time someone reaches out to me and says how what I do encourages them. And I'll tell you, it's funny because last night there was something that literally stopped me in my tracks. There was someone who set up time to talk with me. And when it said, why did you reach out to Denise? And it said, because when I see her, she radiates the confidence that I want to have. Wow. And I thought to myself, I was really taken back with that, because part of the reason why I've shown up is I promised God that I would be seen and I would be heard and I would serve in life-changing ways. And just imagine if I just slacked off on the being seen, right? She would have heard me, but for her to say, when I see her. And so it just reiterates the fact that it's so very important for us to represent the healing because it took a lot to get here to represent the healing brand, right, of Jesus, right? That we can represent it well and be that light and do what he says do, which is to let them see our good works and glorify him. That's what he's called us to do. And I think that's what I love. I love that you're out there and you're showing love to people that would be discounted by others, right? And cast aside from others. And you're like, wait, no, that's not how God does it. That's not what he said. He said that we're supposed to love. And I just love that you're being radical and doing what he's called us to do. And you're right. That's what we're all supposed to do. Mm-hmm. All right. So the next event I want to talk about, and I don't necessarily want to unpack it detailed in terms of what you experienced in this moment, but you found yourself in a situation where your husband was having a heart attack. Literally, his life was on the line. And just seeing you navigate that, right? I know what it is to be grace under fire. I have that trait too. So I understand that, but that doesn't mean that blow wasn't one that rocked your world just because you can navigate that moment. I'm so thankful that you were there. I'm thankful that he was around you. I'm thankful that you took action. I'm thankful that they came within minutes and that his life was saved. I'm thankful for all of that. And I thank you for living that testimony out loud for us to watch you navigate. Tell me what you learned about yourself in that and what you learned about love and what life is like for you now on the other side of that experience.
I think the biggest thing that I learned about myself was no matter how much, like, hear me when I say this, no matter how much, how big, how grand, how vast the trauma is that we heal from, you're always open to more trauma. And I feel like I had this faux sense of security about life. Not that I wasn't grateful and thankful for life, but until I'm faced with the fact that my husband's dying, because that was a very, like, literally in my face, I didn't realize how much of life I took for granted. And so when that trauma hit and post-trauma during his healing process, I had to come to terms with the fact that, yes, praise God. Thank you, Jesus. My man is still here. Yet you're triggered, lady. You're dealing with PTSD from the incident. You're having panic attacks in the middle of the night, I would wake up having a panic attack because of the trauma I experienced. Mm-hmm. And I had to learn it's okay to say that. And it wasn't selfish. It wasn't overshadowing what he had gone through and what he was healing from. But in order for us to move on as a couple, I couldn't just focus on his healing. I had to acknowledge the fact that I was in a pretty jacked up emotional state as a result of it as well. Mm-hmm. And I did what I've known to do my whole life. In a moment of trauma, you push through, you deal with it, you go right on. You know, what needs to be done? Let's handle it. Who do we need to call? What needs to happen? Is everything in place? And when I was doing all of that, I had to identify, okay, girl, you're going back into an old mindset. Mm-hmm. You're going into fix it mode. You're going into let's protect this because stability is where you can draw strength from. Mm-hmm. Don't do that. I had to intentionally tell myself, and I'm still reminding myself not to do that. Mm-hmm. And to realize, okay, let me pull out these tools that my good therapist taught me and use those. Let me figure out, is this PTSD? Is this anxiety? Is this a pain? Like, what is going on? You need to make a doctor's appointment. And I took time away from his incident to realize I was a part of that as well. Mm-hmm. And I'm glad I did that, because had I not, a lot of the old ways that are instinctively in me to move and operate as a woman who's overcome trauma, they would have completely resurfaced. Mm-hmm. And so today I'm in this place of, someone asked me, they were like, Pastor E, what are your goals? What's your 5-year plan? And I was like, child, I don't have one. And for the first time in my life, because if you know me, you know I'm a planner, I'm a strategic planner, I'm goal-oriented, I'm very linear down to the detail. For the first time in my life, I am not creating a plan. I am going to sit in this space with my king and look at the fact that we have worked so hard to be here. Let's actually be here. Mm-hmm. We're empty nesters, and I retired when I was 35. My life as a retiree has still been very busy and going and doing and starting. I'm creating this business, doing this venture, planting this ministry, all of those things. It's like, hit the brakes. If you're going to be here, be present in that space of actual rest, mm-hmm. in that space of actually embracing life in its fullness without feeling the need to fill life with a task or a duty. So today I thought I was laid back before. I didn't think it would be possible for me to be any more chill about life, but I'm literally just resting in the fact that we are married. I'm thanking God for our lives, for our health, for what we're going to do, but from the place of peace and rest versus purpose and task. Mm. And that's a big mindset shift for me, to focus from how do you feel like you can move from purpose into what could be viewed as doing absolutely nothing if you're always doing something, and it be okay, and it be received by yourself, not just everyone around you. Mm-hmm. And I just had to tell myself, Ebony, you don't have to really do anything. You really don't. Like, you worked hard to create this space so that you can curate your days. Why are you curating them with all of these moments and connections with other people?
Mm-hmm.
You know, what if you unplug all of those other moments and you just focus on you and only your husband? Mm-hmm. We say that sometimes as wives, like, oh, it's me and my man. Yeah, but it's still me and my man, my job, my ministry, my kids, all of those things. So for the first time in our marriage, I'm at a place where, as a woman and as a wife, I'm just like, what's up? Mm. What are we going to do? How are we going to do it? Where are we going to go? And just being easy about it and being at a place of, my husband, he went through a hard time physically, but also emotionally and mentally. Being in this space where I can fully support him, to where it's like, if he has the mindset of, oh my gosh, he was 2 minutes away from death. The cardiologist said if he had gotten there 2 minutes later, he would not be here. Mm. And so for my husband to be in that space and knowing he was 2 minutes away from death, and to come out of that and to heal from that and be awakened to the mindset of, what does my life look like? Because he came away from it saying, babe, my whole life has been dedicated to others, my whole life. But what have I done for me? Mm-hmm. And I'm able to say, what do you want to do? Mm-hmm. Whatever it is, let's do it. No hindrance, no what if, no nothing, whatever, let's just do it. And it feels good.
Sometimes I ask the question of my guests, what are they most proud of? And I have to tell you, if I were to answer that, I am most proud of all of the women that I get to work with and how their lives have transformed. By simply prioritizing themselves and making the shift from making everything else and everyone else more important and adding themselves to their top 5. It's not a matter of selecting yourself instead of them, but it's selecting yourself in addition to them. You see, I'm not advocating that you throw everything and everyone away. But what I am advocating is that you choose yourself. You choose to make yourself a priority. You choose to make things that are important to you a priority. And you teach those that you love to honor you in the process. You see, there are some outcomes that come from us learning to prioritize ourselves. We get back to our true self. And that's an awesome priority. You begin to feel worthy and feel valued. You begin to understand and appreciate everything you bring to the table when you get back to being true to you. You also begin to attract the right people. The right people start to show up in your lives because they are aligned with who you really are. You get better at achieving meaningful success because you'll begin to understand the success that you value based on what's important to you. So this whole notion of being unapologetic is not to dismiss others in your life. It's to include yourself in your life. You see, I help women who are so fixed and focused and have been so conditioned on prioritizing everyone else and everything else, bring themselves back into proper alignment. It's something we all do. It's almost a part of realizing our worth and value. And I would love the opportunity to help you discover in such an unapologetic way your value and worth. And if that sounds like something that appeals to you, I invite you to set up a time for you and I to talk about where you are and where you want to be. As a mentor, I help you accelerate your success that's meaningful to you because it's what you want. And so I invite you to go to my website, access my calendar, and grab a time for us. It's www.callwithdenise.live. You deserve to be your priority. Okay, now that we're back, I want to go deeper into some advising wisdom, some insight from you. So let's talk about overcoming fear. How would you suggest a woman navigate that? Navigate fear and navigate limiting beliefs?
I would say that the only way to truly overcome something is to go one step past it. And my definition of courage is that one step past the point of fear. If you have something in your life, no matter how big or how small, that is a fear for you, you're not truly going to overcome it if you don't do one task. It could be a small task, whether it's, oh, I want to go back to school and get my degree, but I'm afraid I won't have financing. That one step could be, well, let me spend some time and figure out what higher education I want, what path I want to take with that. It could be, oh, I want to ask my boss for a raise. That one step could be, let me get online and see with my skill set, what are other people being paid around here so I can be specific about my raise. For me, like my fear of shaving my head, that one step was, okay, girl, if you're going to actually shave your head, you need to do something that's lending towards shaving your head. What fear has done is it has the ability, when we give into it, to make us ruminate on it and to think about it over and over and over, to where that fear is so big that we're completely immobile when it comes to going against that fear, replacing that fear, or doing the opposite of that fear. So if we as women will realize at the end of the day, this fear that's over here, it's just a thing. It doesn't really exist. All I have to do is acknowledge it. Okay, I'm feeling fearful, and take a step past it. Because I'm feeling fear in this capacity, I'm going to intentionally do this action to overcome it. And through action, one step at a time, you'll realize, oh my goodness, I've overcome this fear. I had a lot of people tell me, had a lot of questions about fear, and I would always get these canned answers like to pray about it and that it's false evidence appearing real. It's all of these things, but that never meant anything to me to where it helped me overcome it. Mm-hmm. What really helped me overcome my fear was the realization of, if the fear was mine, it was also mine to get rid of.
I love that. I love that. All right. So when you think about the relationships in your life, which ones would you say are must-haves for you to do what you do?
Honestly, the one must-have is my relationship with myself. Mm-hmm. And I say that because I prioritize my relationship before with my spouse, my kids, with God, with all of these other things. If I don't move past myself, none of this is going to work. I'm not going to work. I'm not going to function if I keep giving into myself. So that's the one relationship that I have to keep on point. And I've noticed that if I'm slipping on my mindsets and my mental wellness or even my attitude overall, if I kind of get in a yucky place, it impacts the type of woman I am. It impacts the type of mother, the type of wife, the type of pastor, the kind of mentor I can be. So woman to woman, that self-check, that Eboney, hey girl, are you all right? For real, for real? That's the main relationship for me, that as far as a natural relationship outside of my spiritual one, that matters the most when staying aligned.
You know what? It's so interesting because as you were talking, I think one of the things that kind of jump started me to really deal with my stuff, right?
Mhm.
Because it's real easy to have that fake you, and then eventually, when it gets caught on the carpet, you have to make a choice if you're going to go deeper. And what I found is if you really want to elevate, you've got to excavate. You got to go deeper within yourself, right? And so I initially got on the scene, if you will. And one of the things I would say all the time is we got to be willing to grow personally in order to soar relationally. And I had no idea what I was calling into my life by saying that. I had no idea what was rising up to meet me.
Mhm.
And as I look over the last 3 years of having done this work and continuing to evolve and emerge, my healing was required of me, right, in order to soar relationally. And some relationships was not able to handle this version. They got burnt up because the substance wasn't there for them to outlast the pressure test, if you will. And so I can relate to that because that personal growth journey and really beginning to understand who you are, what you value, what's really important to you, who's the real you, right? Because what I found is satisfaction and fulfillment fits the real you, not who you pretend to be. And so we have a lot of dissatisfaction because it's showing up in a way that's not matching the real authentic versions of ourselves. And so I agree with you that keeping that in check is going to be the springboard for all of the other relationships to blossom. And so I agree with you. So what's your best advice for women who want more but are struggling to get out of their own way?
My best advice for women who want more but are struggling to get out of their own way is to find you a mentor.
Mm-hmm.
Find you a mentor. A mentor is, and it could be found in anyone, but whatever the obstacle is that you're facing, find another woman that has overcome that obstacle and connect with her. Mm-hmm. And allow her wisdom to help guide you to pull you through. I think as women, sometimes we think we have to do it by ourselves. Absolutely not. That's just a trick and a lie from the enemy. We don't need to do anything by ourselves. A mentor will save your life. I didn't even understand the power of a mentor until I was a teenage mother and I'm having someone from the health department come in and actually show me how to wash and bathe an infant with the little clip on her umbilical cord and how to clean it. That woman mentored me in being a mother. When I was in my career in government and politics, I had a mentor who sat me down and got in my grill and was like, what do you believe? Mm-hmm. What is your stance? And that relationship helped me navigate that political space in a way that was safe. And I used her wisdom to do it. The benefit of having a mentor is they're going to tell you what to do based on proven and tried information. It's not going to be something that you pull up. I'm a little biased when it comes to mentoring versus coaching, because coaching is, here's the plan, it should work. Mentoring is, I already did the plan. This is how I did it. And this is what you definitely don't want to do because it's going to jack you up. So definitely get a mentor.
I love that. I mean, I have to say, I agree 100% with that. I have nothing to add to that. My last question is this. What do you love most about what you do?
Oh my gosh. There's so many things. What is the most? Sissy, I'd have to say that moment when a woman who does not have a voice, whether she doesn't have her voice in a marriage, her voice in her career, a voice in ministry, maybe she doesn't have her voice when it comes to sexuality. It's when that woman comes to me and she tells me that she has spoken out loud in some capacity.
Mm-hmm.
She has found her voice through, whether I get a lot of ladies through social media who don't even interact with me, and they'll come in my inbox and they're like, hey girl, you don't even know me, but I've been watching you, I've been following you, and because of this, I'm now able to do this. You know, I think that falls under that empowerment piece. But to me, I process that as you're helping another woman find her voice in her space and in her world. So anytime that moment happens, in whatever capacity it looks like, it is the absolute most dopest feeling there is in the entire world. That it's amazing. And I kind of have to share that moment with, if you don't, do I have time to share? It has a twin feeling, a twin good feeling, is when you're connected, because I do not use my social media for traditional ministry. I'm not getting on there preaching and posting scriptures and all of that. I actually use my social media to be social and to love people. And I have a lot of non-believers that I'm connected to. When those non-believers who I've never technically preached to, never given a sermon to, when they reach out to me and they've gone from a place of, I don't even know if God is real, to, hey, will you pray for me? Or I have a non-believer send me an inbox message and it's a picture of them where they've gone to church for the first time. Or, oh my gosh, it's a picture of them sending me, I got baptized this Sunday. Like, those moments are so, so beautiful, especially knowing that they arrived from point A to point B, not because of anything I'm doing religiously, but simply because I have loved them to a point of life.
That's beautiful. That's amazing. Please don't stop. Please keep going.
Thank you.
You know, I know that it's sometimes hard in the face of opposition, but that moment is priceless. That's how you change families. That's how you change communities. That's how you change nations, is by showing up in the places where people who need that loving message are. And that's what we're really here for, right?
Absolutely.
All right. So here's my closeout questions. They're just quick hitters to tap into some last morsels of wisdom. What's your life wisdom? What would you tell your younger self about life if you could?
I would tell her that not to look at life through the scope of it being this long journey and a movie, but to look at life as a photo album, to create intentional moments every time. Don't be so focused on the end game that you overlook each intentional moment that you can have along the way.
I love that. Love wisdom. What would you tell your younger self about love if you could?
I say, girl, you are not in love. That ain't it. No, but seriously, I would tell her that love, true love, agape love, is not an emotion and it's not a feeling, that it's all action-based. Love is this composite of intentional, selfless acts.
That's beautiful. And then finally, happiness wisdom. What would you tell your younger self about happiness if you could?
I would tell myself that, excuse me, I'm getting choked up. I'm not going to get emotional. I've gone the whole broadcast. Happiness is not found in anything external. Happiness can't be found in a bottle. It can't be found in a blunt. It can't be found in a boo. Happiness starts from within yourself. And until you're truly happy with yourself, you're never going to be happy with anyone else.
That is so powerful. It's an inside job.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So I want to give you a couple minutes, just because anytime I have some phenomenal women like you on this podcast, I want to open the door for you to just share whatever is on your heart before we close out.
Absolutely. So, hey, ladies, to those of you all who are watching and have spent time with us here today, I just want you to know that life gets better, that whatever you're dealing with right now, there is an after that's a part of it. So even if you feel like you don't want to get up in the morning, even if you feel like this is so hard, because a lot of times it is, no matter what your circumstances, no matter what your situation is, I want you to know it gets better. All you have to do is just focus on the fact that it is going to get better. Whatever you're going through, just think that in a moment. It's going to get better. Sometimes that getting better looks like, okay, I'm getting out of bed today. Sometimes that getting better looks like, okay, I'm going to comb my hair today and not put it up in a messing bun. But I really want to hone in on the fact that life does get better. And the other thing that I want you to remember is, as much as you want it to get better and as much as you want it to change, change doesn't happen if we don't change something. You have 100% all the power to change your situation and to change your circumstances. You have it, girl. Nobody else. So realize how powerful you are. Realize that you are the supreme being here in your life and that you have the power to change your circumstances.
Oh my God. That is so beautiful. I'm going to record it and carry it on my phone and play you back over and over again. All right, Pastor E, it's been a treasure, a real treasure. Success looks so good on you.
Oh, thank you, Sissy.
Thank you so much for being with me today.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. I've had an amazing time.
Well, that's it, beautiful. Thank you for tuning in. Don't ever forget that you are truly blessed with life, love, and all the happiness your heart can hold. Be relentless in building a life you love without apology. I'm Denise Taylor, and you can always find me in our free Facebook community. It's Embrace Your Power. Easy to find. Now be sure to rate and review this podcast and share it with a friend. And make sure you subscribe so that we can stay connected each week. And remember, God has not given us a spirit of fear. He gave us power. So be sure to always embrace your power and go.